Bahamas, and he's also a noted civil litigator. He's known for his innovative approach and is sought after for complex and groundbreaking cases, including the cases of those who have suffered justice by the state. Well, this morning, once again, that announcement is expected to be made here inside the tent. We already have a number of persons who are seated. Some of those persons would have been here from 8 o'clock this morning. We have the clergy as well as other government and dignitaries. Also standing by live by the Senate is our Jimenita Swain. Jimenita.
Well, thanks, Shashina. Of course, team coverage here in Parliament Square. That's where I'm stationed. And I can give you an idea of what will take place in the Senate at about 10 o'clock. So what will happen is the senators will assemble in the chamber. The president and her procession will enter the chamber. Of course, we have to start everything with prayer, so there will be a session for prayer. And then the president will appoint a 3-member committee that will be made up of 2 government senators, 1 senator from the opposition. They will then be dispatched to wait on the Governor General. Now, within that time, the committee departs for the House of Assembly, the government house, pardon me. The president will make a communication. That should be about 5 or 10 minutes. And then she will also name the sessional committee. At that time, or somewhere around in that time, that committee will return, and then eventually processions will make their way for the speech from the throne, except receiving the Governor General and allowing her to get in place where preparations will begin for her to begin with her speech from the throne. So a lot of activity happening here, guests arriving and ensuring that they're taking their seats. But again, this is team coverage, so I toss it now over to Sean Innes, who is also standing by. Good morning, Sean.
We're here in the main hall, where, of course, we are awaiting the opening of the House of Assembly and, of course, in the precincts of the Senate and Parliament Street. It is a beehive of activity. Chief Protocol Officer Terry Archer and his dutiful officer.
Preparation has begun and material being prepared for public consultation. In its ongoing support for the growth and development of the young people of our nation, my government will introduce a National Youth Commission bill. This body will be mandated to implement policies, programs, and projects consistent with the National Youth Policy to help support young people in developing their potential. Building on the success of the National Youth Guard, my government will introduce a national service bill that will invite our young citizens to register for national service. The participants in this program will serve to meet the needs of our vulnerable communities throughout the Bahamas. Reliable access to affordable health care is still out of reach for too many Bahamians. Notwithstanding its achievement in rescuing the healthcare system from near collapse, my government continues to build on lessons learned from COVID-19 pandemic to bolster our public health preparedness and healthcare delivery systems. My government continues to make investments to improve the healthcare infrastructure in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and throughout all the family of islands. This will include the introduction of a new telemedicine platform. My government will build a new specialty hospital in New Providence and will complete the construction of the new hospital in Grand Bahama. My government prioritizes public health, mental health and wellness initiatives, and is moving aggressively to implement the second phase of national health insurance with the introduction of catastrophic health care cover. This will make health care more affordable to all Bahamians. In order to address the global shortages of healthcare workers, my government will establish additional accredited medical programs and increase investment in healthcare training. My government will repeal and replace the current Stem Cell Act to tighten its regulatory framework. Legislation will be introduced for the health care and protection of older persons to provide for adequate care and attention for older generations of Bahamians on whose shoulders our country has been built. My government expresses its thanks and gratitude to healthcare professionals across the archipelago who continue to serve the people of this nation. Madam President and honorable senators, Madam Speaker and members of the Honorable House of Assembly, in promoting greater economic security for the Bahamian people and the country as a whole, my government's legislative agenda promotes growth and diversification in the economy. It introduces measures to combat the high and rising cost of living, boosts development in communities throughout the Family Islands and in New Providence, provides support for housing, protects our natural resources, resolves long-standing issues relating to land, and advances a range of initiatives to develop the national infrastructure. My government will also introduce a number of bills to help grow and diversify our economy. In order to lay the strategic foundation for the future, my government will introduce the Bahamas National Development Plan bill. By putting the National Development Plan on a statutory footing, my government seeks to ensure that the next 50 years of our national life will have a fine strategic underpinning and focus. My government will introduce economic empowerment zone legislation. This will set out a range of initiatives and concessions to support specific industries and specify geographic areas. Intellectual property legislation will be introduced to protect the country's creative industries and empower our orange economy. This legislation will unlock paths to job and wealth creation. New opportunities will be created by legislation regulating cannabis and hemp. Several rounds of public consultation have already been completed, and my government notes the widespread enthusiasm amongst the public for this new health and economic sector. My government will propose legislation to introduce a yacht registry. A new legal profession amendment bill will be advanced that will establish a modern approach to the oversight of the legal profession. My government remains committed to development and innovation in the financial services industry. It is committed to compliance with international best practice while being innovative in new product and service development. A new securities industry bill will be presented that will ensure that our financial services industry and its regulation maintain the highest level of regulatory integrity. A new digital asset registered exchanges bill will also be advanced, which will ensure that our country continues to lead from the front and in the digital assets industry. Madam President and honorable senators, Madam Speaker and members of the Honorable House of Assembly, survey results from 2020 confirm what we all know, that the Bahamas remain one of the top 10 most expensive countries in the world. The high cost of living is a major cause of financial stress and the psychological distress in the country. In a number of sectors, poorer people pay disproportionately higher costs than the wealthier section of society. My government does not wish to overburden any sector of the community, but we do wish to make our economy fairer. In order to provide a better framework for businesses and consumers, my government will introduce the following measures. A new Registrar General bill to reorganize the operations of the Registrar General Office. This will help to ease the burden of doing business in the Bahamas. My government will launch a new online company registry portal, which will help to make the process of registration more efficient. My government will also launch a new online civil platform to provide efficient, transparent services to Bahamians. My government is also mindful of the need to provide for greater protection of consumers and will therefore introduce consumer protection legislation. As the cost of energy is a sufficient driver of the high cost in the country, my government will undertake a root and branch review of the energy sector and has recently established a Ministry of Energy to implement effective, long-standing solutions. My government has already launched programs to install 100 megawatts of solar energy in Nassau, and now blended power facilities incorporating a minimum of 50% solar generation in 16 locations throughout the Family Islands. The introduction of renewable energy is a fundamental component of our promise to drive down the cost of electricity. My government remains especially committed to implementing clean energy in New Providence by moving to sources of renewable energy and becoming less dependent on fossil fuels. Building on these new efforts, my government will therefore introduce the following legislation: a new renewable energy bill that will provide a legislative and regulatory framework for the expansion of renewable energy generation. A new liquid natural gas bill that will provide a legislative and regulatory framework for development of LNG generation, which will provide and produce lower carbon emissions from the current system, along with the regulation of bunkering and blending LNG facilities in the Bahamas. A National Development Food Security Plan is being created. The objective of the plan is to achieve a comprehensive framework for food and agricultural development to promote investment, job creation, and environmental sustainability. My government will continue to build on the success of programs such as the Golden Yoke program to provide greater economic security for Bahamians in retirement and in times of need. My government will introduce a bill to amend the National Insurance Act and regulations and the National Insurance Chronic Diseases Prescription Drug Fund Act. My government will implement a new local government bill that will enhance the operations and responsibilities of local government throughout our family of islands. The government will also take local government concepts to our children, and so it will re-implement a junior local government council throughout the family islands. Frequently, it is our family islands that experience the brunt of the climate crisis, requiring continued rebuilding and infrastructure investment. My government will launch the Family Island Infrastructure Fund to encourage public-private partnerships and economic opportunities for Bahamians. To secure the economic and social sustainability of our various communities, my government will introduce a number of measures to strengthen social support. My government will present a new Urban Renewal Authority bill which will provide for the establishment of an urban renewal authority to improve the quality of life for residents in designated communities throughout the Bahamas. We will provide free access to the internet in low-income communities. This will help to ensure that every student in school can access the internet so that no child is left behind because of their economic or social circumstances. My government will restructure the monthly assistance program for seniors or other eligible persons that can be used to cover the cost of food, electricity, or water. My government will fulfill its promise and increase benefits for persons with disabilities. My government will also provide the much-needed post-school age facility for persons with disabilities. Every Bahamian's quality of life should be enhanced by legislation which will be put forward to ensure public access and right-of-way to beaches by requiring at least one public access to every beach. Dignity and respect should also come at the end of life. And so my government will also introduce a funeral industry service bill to bring about a regulatory framework for the funeral home industry. My government considers housing to be a basic right of all Bahamian citizens and is committed to implementing robust programs and policies to expand opportunities for home ownership. My government is moving to aggressively complete the planned construction of 180 affordable homes and will provide additional new housing throughout the country. My government is acutely aware of the challenges climate change places on our built environment. Hundreds of critically needed homes on Abaco and Grand Bahama have not been rebuilt or remain significantly damaged since the passage of Hurricane Dorian. My government will accelerate the construction of new and affordable homes on Abaco and Grand Bahama. My government will create a sustainable rent-to-own housing initiative to create an additional pathway to home ownership for Bahamians, those Bahamians who are facing financial barriers. Our land, seas, and all natural resources are a part of patrimony and birthright of all Bahamians. A national forest bill will be presented to ensure that our green economy in general and our forests in particular are given the necessary regulatory framework to support environmental sustainability. My government will propose legislation to regulate mining, to provide a proper framework to prevent the unlawful exploitation of our natural resources. This will also provide a defined royalty framework so that it is Bahamians who benefit. The Bahamas Wildlife Enforcement Network Bill proposes to establish an armed law enforcement agency dedicated to enforcing all laws with regard to our nation's natural resources. One long-standing issue that our government will address in the upcoming legislative session is the security of property ownership. My government will do what many previous administrations have promised. It will enact appropriate legislation to deal with land registration and the adjudication of disputes. In this context, the government will amend the Environmental Planning and Protection Act to provide for a streamlined application of the environmental laws to Bahamian-owned small developments. Regulations will also be introduced under the Environmental Planning and Protection Act to allow for spot fines to be administered for violation of the act that will result in environmental damage. Madam President and honorable senators, Madam Speaker and members of the Honorable House of Assembly, in strengthening its focus on the country's national security, my government is concerned to ensure that our borders are well defended, disposed to have positive relations with our neighboring states in CARICOM, and all those with whom we enjoy friendly relations, determined to regulate the flow of migrants into our country, to arrest and reduce the incidence of crime, and ensure the long-term sustainability of our territory by making us more resilient to the negative impacts of climate change. In respect of our armed forces, amendments will be proposed to the Defense Force Act and regulations. These modernizing measures will help to continue to preserve discipline and good order in the Defense Force. A Royal Bahamas Defense Force Cadets Bill will also be proposed to allow the current Royal Bahamas Defense Force Rangers to become a legislated youth arm of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. In respect to our relationships with other nations, my government will continue to ensure that our foreign policy objectives align and support our national priorities on climate change, food security, human rights and development, irregular migration, and other cross-border criminal activities. Our diplomacy will also focus on trade and investment, public health, and disaster preparedness. My government is greatly affected by the high volume of irregular migrants who travel to our shores. While we understand the plight of these persons, They're seeking refuge for a better life. The Bahamas cannot sustain the overwhelming numbers of persons. We will, therefore, continue to protect our borders. My government will introduce a bill to amend the Immigration Act to make new provisions and to be more responsive to the present realities of our immigration circumstances. Regulations will be introduced to govern the procedures at the detention center to ensure that it is operating optimally and in conformity with international best practices. The incidence of crime and the fear of crime continues to blight the lives of many of our people. Therefore, my government will introduce a compendium of measures to underpin its strategies in prevention, detection, prosecution, punishment, and rehabilitation. Several reforms will be put forward during the current legislative session. These include a National Security Council bill, a National Intelligence bill, and the Conditional Release of Offenders bill. Anti-gang legislation will be brought to Parliament that will provide for stiffer penalties and prison terms for numbers of and acts of criminal institutions and organizations. Amendments are proposed to the Firearm Act, which will require safety training for everyone licensed to possess a firearm. An amendment will be proposed to the Supreme Court Act to expand the number of Supreme Court justices by 5 in order to expedite and clear the backlog of cases. A new court services bill will empower the judiciary to operate autonomously by taking away oversight by central government. Thereby removing the bottleneck caused by the current system and providing further judicial independence. My government will introduce legislation to combat cybercrime. From time to time, other additional measures will be laid before you to support this ambitious agenda for change. My government understands that while we are, all of us, impatient for change, real change takes time. And while that change is underway, we must be mindful to ensure that those who struggle most, those amongst us whose lives depend on the rest of us being good neighbors, that we stand up, step forward, and reach out in their times of need. And so, my government remains grateful for the support of and partnership with the Bahamian people and looks forward to continuing that support. to build on further progress and drive new change. Now that the country is headed in the right direction, together we can work ever more fervently to achieve the kind of big changes so longed by the Bahamian people. I pray that the blessings of Almighty God rest upon your councils as you strive to bring about a better day, a new day in the Bahamas. I thank you. Amen.
All right, audio is up. Audio. Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Glennis Hannah Martin, Alfred Says, Dr. Michael Gobble, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Bolag, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRoda, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightborn, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Cassius Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightborn, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Mikhail Barnaby, Michael Pintard, James Kwesi Thompson, Hiram Lewis, Shannon Don Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White.
Thank you, honorable members. As I compose myself, we just lost a friend, a former aspirant for Yamacraw by the name of Mitzi Turnquest. She passed away suddenly. May her soul rest in peace. So just give me a moment to compose myself and we will proceed. Honorable members, the House, having waited upon Her Excellency, the Governor General, and the precincts of the Senate in Parliament Square, Her Excellency had been pleased to open this session of Parliament with a speech of which, to prevent mistakes, I obtained a copy. And with the consent of the House, I will read the first and last paragraph. Madam President and the honorable senators, Madam Speaker and members of the Honorable House of Assembly, as this is the first occasion upon which I am presenting my government's agenda in this assembly, I pray God's special guidance and blessings upon us all as we go about the business of the people of the Bahamas. And so my government remains grateful for the support of and partnership with the Bahamian people and looks forward to continuing that support to build on further progress and drive new change. Now that the country is heading in the right direction, together we can work ever more fervently to achieve the kind of big changes so longed for by the Bahamian people. I pray that the blessings of Almighty God rest upon your councils as you strive to bring about a better day, a new day in our Bahamas. I order that this communication do lie on the table. Order that the Deputy Speaker do now take the chair.
Order that all messages to Her Excellency, the Governor General, be signed by the Speaker. I come down. Reading communications by the Speaker. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. Statements and communications by ministers. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Message from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seats, or new writs. presentations of petitions, presentations of reports of committees, adoption of reports of committees, first reading of bills, second reading and committal of bills.
No second reading.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Committee of the Whole, third reading and passing of bills.
Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Consideration of Senate amendments and resolutions. Member statements. Appointment of select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notice of future meetings.
Resolution.
No.
No, we have to do. No. Yeah.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Yeah, but there are two resolutions. Mr. Deputy Speaker. We have to deal with the resolution. Yeah.
Okay, that's 54, 42. Because remember, I passed.
Yeah.
Resolutions.
May it please you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise to move the following resolution. Resolved that all bills, proceedings, and other papers connected with the present session of the House be printed unless otherwise resolved, and that Madam Speaker be, and she is hereby authorized to enter into a contract or contracts for the proper performance of such printing, and also to ensure the early publication of the votes in pamphlet form. I so move.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Resolved that all bills, proceedings, and other papers connected with the present session of the House of Assembly be printed unless otherwise resolved, and that Madam Speaker be, and she is hereby authorized to enter into a contract or contracts for the proper performance of such printing, and also to ensure the early publication of the votes in pamphlet form. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions?
May it please you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise to move the following resolution. Resolved that Madam Speaker be, and she is hereby authorized to make provisions for a chaplain so that prayers may be offered at the beginning of each meeting of the House before any business is entered upon. And I so move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Resolved that Madam Speaker be, and she is hereby authorized to make provision for a chaplain so that prayers may be offered at the beginning of each meeting of the House before any business is entered upon. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The resolution is agreed. Members,
Notices.
we got member statement.
He's gone now.
Further resolutions?
No further resolutions.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Okay. We go. Instructions of select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I or another member representing the government will move for the adoption of the following resolution. Resolved that a humble address be presented to Her Excellency the Governor General, thanking her for a most gracious speech at the opening of Parliament.
One second. Order that the notice be brought up. Order notice that it be to lie on the table. Further notices.
No further notices.
Notice for future meetings. No.
I said no further.
Okay. Adjournment.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House at its rising do adjourn to Wednesday, the 18th of October at 10 a.m.
Second. Okay, all right. It has been moved and seconded that the House and its rising do adjourn to Wednesday, the 18th at 10 a.m., 2023. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is agreed. Final adjournment.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Second. It has been moved and seconded that the House do now adjourn. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned to Wednesday, the 18th at 10 a.m., 2023.
All right. It is with profound sadness that we mourn the death of the Honorable Obadiah Hercules Wilchcombe, Minister of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting, and also leader of government business in the House of Assembly. I reflect on his invaluable contribution to the development of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas as a veteran journalist, an historian, an articulate orator, and an outstanding nationalist with solemnity. In the coming days, as I ascend to the Speaker's chair, no longer can I look to my immediate right and see the familiar face that always graced me with his signature smiles, the presence of his calm spirit, and of course, that assuring nod signaled that everything was going to be okay. It is because of his dedication to duty that his voice was often heard in the halls of Parliament. He was ever present. It was his voice that moved the adjournment and suspension motions in the House. His grace, his humility, his style, his professionalism, and love for country are what defined him more than anything else. I am certain that his mantra to me would be to continue the journey. We have a country to build. It will be my sad task to receive his body when it arrives at the House of Assembly, where it will lie in state. Because of his many involvements, the Honorable Obadiah Wilchcombe cast a long shadow over the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I am often reminded of the scripture in the book of John. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. For now, I will not say goodbye, but see you later. I know he will continue the story of one love in the heavens as we celebrate his life and legacy on earth. On behalf of the Parliament of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Senate and the House of Assembly, and the staff of both chambers, we extend our collective condolences and prayers to Minister Wilchcombe's family and friends during this time of bereavement. May he rest in peace. It is with profound sadness that we mourn the death of the Honorable Obadiah Hercules Wilchcombe, Minister of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting, and also leader of government business in the House of Assembly. I reflect on his invaluable contribution to the development of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas as a veteran journalist, an historian, an articulate orator, and an outstanding nationalist with solemnity. In the coming days, as I ascend to the Speaker's chair, no longer can I look to my immediate right and see the familiar face that always graced me with his signature smiles, the presence of his calm spirit, and of course, that assuring nod signaled that everything was going to be okay. It is because of his dedication to duty that his voice was often heard in the halls of Parliament. He was ever present. It was his voice that moved the adjournment and suspension motions in the House. His grace, his humility, his style, his professionalism, and love for country are what defined him more than anything else. I am certain that his mantra to me would be to continue the journey. We have a country to build. It will be my sad task to receive his body when it arrives at the House of Assembly, where it will lie in state. Because of his many involvements, the Honorable Obadiah Wilchcombe cast a long shadow over the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I am often reminded of the scripture in the book of John. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. For now, I will not say goodbye, but see you later. I know he will continue the story of one love in the heavens as we celebrate his life and legacy on earth. On behalf of the Parliament of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Senate and the House of Assembly, and the staff of both chambers, we extend our collective condolences and prayers to Minister Wilchcombe's family and friends during this time of bereavement. May he rest in peace.